Tell me that I never meant shit to you without saying I never meant shit to you. I'll go first. Your main love language is gift giving, and it's been nothing but all expenses paid 5-star vacations, diamond necklaces, rings, and matching tennis bracelets. Cocaine, omakase, and champagne for her since the moment you laid eyes on her. For me, it was a single Alex and Annie clearance rack bracelet from Menlo Macy's 5 minutes before it closed. Week-old wilted lilies and halvesies on absolutely everything. I bought a used truck because I didn't want to put miles on my Mercedes. And she drove a 1994 Dodge Viper R10, first generation, as a daily driver. My shop was downstairs from my apartment. I was very busy, very well off, and very generous with my lover. I never asked for anything material. I mentioned a few things I've always wanted, like a thick gold Cuban chain choker and like a Rolex, but I never expected to receive either one. She gave me a Samsung smartwatch one year for Christmas because I had given her the Apple Watch that she still wears to this very day. But I never mentioned how much I despised that bulky monster of a watch. I'll explain why I was so ungrateful a bit later. She lived 40 minutes from her job, 20 minutes from me. In the same direction, I was dead in between. She would stay with me most nights out of convenience, but sometimes she had a super early morning gig and would leave around 6 a.m. At this point, the Viper had over 200,000 miles and was starting to act accordingly. So she started driving my truck to and from her job, 46 miles round trip, 28 minutes each way, for about 5 months. On certain trips, we would take the Viper or the Benz, but we mostly relied on the truck. I had 19 points on my license, about $5,000 in bills monthly, and my insurance was asinine. But I was fine because my finances were stable and greater than my debts at the time. She lived with her parents. Her father owned the Viper and a bunch of old Porsches. Her only fiscal responsibility was her phone. She was 34 and I was 36. Around August, we started having major issues. My instincts weren't calming down, and I kept accusing her of hanging out with her ex. I got my cards read weekly, and the same 2 storylines kept coming out. She has this friend who always had the ex over his house, and she began deleting the conversations between them. So naturally, I started panicking. I had no proof, and she denied everything. It kept me in a loop. My mental health was in shambles, and I was driving myself absolutely insane. First storyline was that she'd been working things out with her ex at that guy's house. Unfortunately, it turned out to be spectacularly true, as he'd been setting up double dates for them in private, intimate settings. They even tried to set up a vacation to Puerto Rico, but for whatever reason, the ex bailed, and it ended up being just them. The first receipt came through Facebook at his birthday party, where I was intentionally not invited. But she found herself wrapping her arms around said ex while wearing a fleece jacket we had bought together the week before. Later, I'd come to find the rest. Pictures, videos, so much evidence of them together at other people's houses and functions, in pools, on holidays and special occasions, more than a few while we were still together. Anywho, we made plans to visit Tennessee in October, but I hadn't been working much since she liked to party Thursday through Sunday. I asked her for $500 towards the car insurance since she was the one driving it, and my premium was upward of $1,600. I failed to mention that on the rare occasion that I drove the truck, it never had gas, the tires were always low, and there was dirt, dog hair, and trash everywhere. She never took care of anything given to her. The only pride and ownership she ever felt was for the expensive name brand clothes she wore. Instead of giving me the money, she decided she didn't want to drive the truck anymore, and she needed me to drop her off at home. We converse, She concedes and offers to give me 2 payments 2 weeks apart, one before Tennessee and one after. I agree, and she continues driving the truck, but I'm still distressed because my spirit won't shut the fuck up. 2 days before our flight, I found that infamous pic of her at that guy's party, and to make an even longer story just a bit shorter, I did not handle it well in the least. The second storyline was even worse, and when it came to fruition, I became physically ill on top of my already unstable emotional state. My body started shutting down. I was covered in hives the size of tea saucers with no explanation at the height of the pandemic, and while I'm begging her to stay indoors and safe, she preferred instead to go explore her options and opportunities elsewhere. A tall, brown-skinned woman with long athletic legs and an accent that lives far away has been whispering sweet nothings in her ears. They've been pillow talking about the state of your relationship, and that woman is successfully making her way in. She offers the opposite of everything that you are, and your girl is starting to get curious. So of course, I'm tripping, I'm crying, I'm losing my mind, I'm alone because I can't tell anyone else that I stayed after knowing what I already know. I have no solid evidence, no idea where she would even have the time or desire to be with anyone else. She continued denying everything, and we tried to make it work one last time, but by then it was obvious she had been checked out. Password changes, complete conversations gone, and Snapchat scores rising. They say you squeeze the hardest when you know it's time to let go, and I sure did. She deleted all the pics of me from her page and continued accepting invitations that purposely excluded me. Then finally one day, she just got sick of my shit altogether. I'd woken up super early as I usually do and noticed the iPad was still on, so I went through her DMs. I found that brown-skinned woman and assured myself that I had nothing to worry about because she looked like something that had crawled out of a gutter. But man, was I wrong. That toxic waste of a twat turned out to be her next official girlfriend, going as far as publicly accepting the relationship status change on Facebook. I was devastated. You ever look at someone and can just tell they have a sour smell to them? To this day, she looks like she smells like hot dumpster juice on the 14th of July. And I cannot get over how my ex really put her mouth on that disgusting sewage drain. According to her, she denied my relationship status change on Facebook because she only used it for work and didn't want her personal life to be exposed. When I sent her proof of all the accusations that I had made, she told me she didn't care. That she lied because she didn't want to hear my mouth. Her favorite thing to say to me, an obsessive Scorpio moon, was just move on, let it go. As if that registers in my vocabulary or something. As if that's not the hardest task in this God-forsaken life for me to do. The love of my life telling me that her disrespect and disregard for me and my boundaries are just not that serious. And I should just let it go and move on. She tried reaching out once or twice, but I could never see past my own grief. She has no idea how hard I cried, how her nonchalance and selfishness disrupted my stability. She has said she's sorry a million times, but she's never once actually meant it. Though with this lie, I'm okay. Because I've said I forgive her once or twice, and I've never actually meant it. My top 3 love languages are words of affirmation, followed by acts of service and quality time. Sharks are born swimming, and I get it. I have been intense since the very beginning. If I'm into you, you'll never question where you stand with me. I will literally give you everything I can. Whatever I have is yours. I gave this woman the entirety of me. My whole being. I never saw anyone the way I saw her. And she couldn't even be bothered to learn my tastes. I'm allergic to latex. The watch band was rubberized. When I bought hers, I got her 7 different interchangeable armbands to work with every possible outfit, from classy events to workout sessions. And at the time, it was the latest model available on the market. Once she finally saw that karmic agent of chaos for what she really was, they parted ways. And I assume she realized that what I had warned her about was true. She then was introduced to the love of her life, Aphrodite herself, the Empress Libra. In Greek mythology, Ares, the god of war, becomes so enthralled with conquering the gaze of his brother's wife that he collected all the riches from all his conquests and gave them all to her. He persevered despite the omens, and she eventually gave in, bearing him 5 children and leaving Hephaestus, her husband and brother-in-law, betrayed and behind. As it was written, she showered her heterosexual friend with gifts, attentions, and a sense of security that I know all too well. She has this intoxicating way of making you feel like the most important person in the universe. She moved mountains and parted oceans to make sure the Empress Libra would be moved by her courtship. And she was. On our first date, I brought her flowers, I got my hair done, and I paid for everything. She showed up wearing joggers, a sweater, flip-flops, and a messy bun. On their first date, she took the Empress to the Dominican Republic for 10 days. On our first Valentine's together, I received a bracelet from the clearance tables at the mall across the street from her job. On their first, she got a giant tear-shaped promise ring and 24 of the most gorgeous giant roses I have ever seen. A few months passed, she took her to Mexico, where they eloped, then later had a fake engagement party in mid-August. A woman that despises rings because they make her hands feel funny is now proudly rocking her solid gold band with inlaid diamonds and never even thinks of taking it off. In the beginning of our relationship, I would break up with her all the time. Every little red flag that would pop up, I was ready to just jump and call it quits. She would hunt me down and make me feel so very wanted. It never once dawned on me that what she loved most was the thrill of the chase. No chase has ever given her as much validation and satisfaction as this one has and continues to give her. Getting those $500 out of her was like pulling teeth, and our relationship declined steadily and heavily after that. I knew I fucked up big time in blatantly asking her for anything at all. She's one of those people who has to be finessed into thinking that things are their idea. I have never seen someone spend so much money in exchange for so little time. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in less than a year. It's an immensely humbling experience to watch a person that once made you think you were special show you exactly how irrelevant, unimportant, and undesirable you really are.